Welcome to Africo Tales. The city of Lagos pulsed outside, a vibrant symphony of horns, distant music, and the relentless hum of a million lives chasing dreams. But within the opulent bridal suite of the Grand Heritage Hotel, a different kind of night unfolded. Candlelight flickered, casting golden shadows on rich Adir fabrics and modern art. Amma, draped in silk that shimmered like moonlight on a calm lagoon, felt her heart race like a drum solo. Beside her, Kwame, handsome and strong, in his bespoke agbada, turned, his eyes, dark pools of tenderness, meeting hers. It was their wedding night, a moment dreamed of, whispered about, and now, finally, here. Yet, amidst the fervent anticipation, an unspoken truth, heavy as the finest gold chain, hung in the air, threatening to unravel the carefully woven tapestry of their love before dawn even dared to break. The air in the suite was thick with the scent of jasmine and nervous expectation. Amma watched Kwame, his broad shoulders rising and falling with steady breaths as he gently unpinned the last of her elaborate hair accessories. Each movement was deliberate, respectful, as if he were unwrapping a precious, fragile gift. Her wedding gown, a masterpiece of modern design with intricate traditional beadwork, lay crumpled on a velvet chaise, a relic of the day's joyous yet exhausting celebrations. The laughter of guests, the booming bass of the DJ, the endless procession of well-wishers and their pronouncements of blessings all had faded into a distant murmur, leaving only the two of them, poised on the precipice of a new beginning. She felt a shiver, not of cold, but of profound vulnerability. Kwame's touch was light as he traced the curve of her jaw, his strong thumb brushing her lip. "May I?" he murmured, his voice a low rumble that resonated deep within her. It wasn't a question of permission for physical intimacy alone, but an inquiry into the very depth of her being, a plea for acceptance, for trust. In that moment, Amma remembered her mother's words, whispered just before the ceremony, "A woman's greatest strength is her softness, my daughter. But never let it be mistaken for weakness." Her mother, Mama Aduni, a formidable matriarch who commanded respect with a single glance, had always emphasized tradition, family honor, and the careful dance between desire and duty. Amma knew that tonight she wasn't just marrying Kwame. She was stepping into a legacy, into a story far older and more complex than she could yet fathom. The weight of that legacy, intertwined with a secret she had carried, settled on her shoulders, a silent counterpoint to the growing warmth in Kwame's gaze. "Teach me slowly," Amma whispered, her voice barely audible, a fragile plea hanging in the quiet space between them. "With gentleness." Kwame paused, his fingers still on her face, his eyes searching hers, understanding blooming in their depths. He didn't rush, didn't press. Instead, he simply nodded. A silent promise. This wasn't the frantic, demanding passion she'd seen portrayed in foreign films or heard whispered about by her more audacious friends in the bustling Lagos offices, where she worked as a marketing executive. This was something deeper, older, a reverence that felt both unfamiliar and profoundly right. He kissed her forehead, then her eyelids, then the corner of her mouth, each touch a question, each response a soft sigh of growing surrender. As his lips finally found hers, a slow, unhurried exploration, Amma's mind, despite the rising tide of sensation, drifted. She saw, in a fleeting, unwelcome flashback, the face of Kunle, her previous suitor. Kunle, with his flashy car, his expensive suits, his impatient demands. He had represented the Lagos dream for many: money, status, ambition. But his touch had been urgent, possessive, devoid of the gentle inquiry Kwame offered. Snoranti nafo, why hurry a good thing? Her grandmother, Iya Agba, used to say, stirring fufu over a low flame in their old compound back in Ijebu Ode. A yam cooked too fast is half raw, my child. Kunle's impatience had mirrored a part of Lagos she both admired and feared: the relentless pursuit of more, often at the expense of genuine connection. Kwame, though equally successful, operating a burgeoning tech firm from his sleek Victoria Island office, possessed a quiet strength, a calm that rooted him even amidst the city's ceaseless churn. It was this calm that now began to chip away at the edges of Amma's carefully constructed composure, making her wonder if the secret she held, born of that very pursuit of more, could ever truly be reconciled with the profound gentleness unfolding between them. Kwame, sensing Amma's subtle tension, pulled back slightly, his eyes still holding hers. He knew this wasn't just about physical intimacy. There were layers, unspoken histories, woven into the fabric of every union. His own heart carried its burdens, heavy as the golden necklaces worn by ancient kings. Just weeks ago, his mother, Mama Ekayet, had sat him down, her voice low and serious as she spoke of the family's legacy. "You are the first son, Kwame," she had reminded him, stirring a pot of steaming jollof rice in their Ikoyi kitchen. "Your father's business, his name, his hopes, they rest on your shoulders. And with a new wife comes the expectation of heirs. Strong ones, healthy ones." The words, though customary, had resonated with an unsettling weight, for Kwame carried a secret fear, a whisper from his past that chilled him more than any Lagos Harmattan wind. Years ago, a routine medical checkup, prompted by a minor procedure, had revealed a potential concern, a murmur about reproductive challenges. The doctor had been vague, suggesting it was nothing definite, but perhaps something to monitor. Kwame, a man who prided himself on control and strength, had buried the information deep, unwilling to face the stigma it could bring, not just to himself, but to his entire lineage in a society where a man's worth was often measured by his ability to father children. He had convinced himself it was a false alarm, a misdiagnosis. But tonight, in the quiet intimacy, as Amma's vulnerability mirrored his own, the buried fear resurfaced, cold and sharp. Could he give her what society and his family expected? Could he fulfill the ancient promise of continuity? He traced the delicate patterns on Amma's skin, a silent prayer forming on his lips, hoping his gentleness could somehow compensate for a potential inadequacy, a hidden struggle he was not yet brave enough to confess. The wedding itself had been a spectacle, a testament to the Oladipo and Balogun families' status and influence within Lagos society. 1,000 guests, a hall draped in white and gold, a 6-tier cake, and a budget that could buy a small island. It was everything Amma's father, Chief Oladipo, a prominent contractor with fingers in every lucrative pie, had envisioned. But behind the dazzling facade, a bitter truth twisted. Flashback to 6 months prior. Amma sat in her father's opulent living room, the scent of expensive cigars clinging to the air, as he brokered the alliance with Kwame's family. "This marriage," Chief Oladipo had declared, his voice booming like thunder, "will secure our family's future, Amma. Kwame's tech empire, combined with our network, unstoppable." Amma remembered the cold dread that had settled in her stomach. She, Loved Kwame? Truly. But the sheer transactional nature of the discussion left a bitter taste. Her father had dismissed her concerns about a rival suitor, Dio, a kind but less financially robust architect, with a wave of his hand. Love is for novels, my daughter. Marriage is for legacy, for power. She knew then that a deal had been struck, not just between families, but perhaps even deeper. A promise of investment from the Bologans into one of her father's struggling projects, in exchange for Amma's hand. It was a common enough practice in certain circles, a subtle form of arranged marriage dressed in the garb of modern choice. But the cost, Amma now realized, was more than just a dowry. It was a sliver of her authentic self, a compromise of her own desires. She had remained silent, a dutiful daughter, knowing the consequences of defiance within her patriarchal household could be severe, isolating her not just from her father, but from the wider family support system. The weight of this unspoken pact, this betrayal of a purer love, pressed down on her, even as Kwame's lips brushed against hers, tasting of hopeful, innocent joy. Suddenly, a gust of wind, unseasonal and sharp, rattled the window panes of the suite. A delicate ceramic figurine, part of the wedding decor, toppled from a nearby shelf, shattering on the polished marble floor. Amma gasped, pulling back from Kwame, her heart thumping a frantic rhythm. "An omen," she whispered, her eyes wide with a fear born of ancient belief. Though she lived in the ultra-modern heart of Lagos, the superstitions of her upbringing, passed down from her grandmother, were deeply ingrained. Her grandmother, Iya Agba, had always warned that when the pot breaks, it is not just the water that is lost, but the vessel itself. The next morning, the city of Lagos awoke with its usual cacophony, oblivious to the fractured peace in Amma and Kwame's suite. The newlywed couple, instead of radiating post-nuptial bliss, moved with a quiet, almost strained politeness. The gentleness of the night before, while still present, was now tinged with a delicate uncertainty. Kwame, in his sleek Mercedes, drove Amma through the bustling streets, past hawkers expertly balancing wares on their heads, past uniformed schoolchildren laughing loudly, past the gleaming skyscrapers of Eco-Atlantic standing sentinel over the lagoon. He was taking her to his family home, the start of their new life. But the usual excitement was muted. Amma observed the city with a heightened awareness, a feeling that every face held a potential secret, every street corner a hidden history. As they navigated the notorious Lagos traffic, a sudden jolt from a reckless Okada rider jarred Amma. Her gaze fell upon a woman selling roasted corn by the roadside, her face etched with a familiar sorrow. It was Dio's mother, Iya Dio. Amma's heart seized. She hadn't seen her since before. The wedding negotiations. The sight transported her back to a memory she'd tried to bury. Dio, her former suitor, the architect, begging her father for her hand, offering only his modest but honest love. Chief Oladipo had scoffed, dismissing him as a dreamer, not a provider. Dio's mother, a woman of quiet dignity, had pleaded for harmony, for a union based on affection, not just ledger books. Amma saw the shame and defeat in Dio's eyes that day, and the profound sadness in his mother's. Now, seeing Iya Dio amidst the chaotic beauty of Lagos, struggling to make ends meet, a wave of guilt washed over Amma. The city, vibrant and unforgiving, had a way of bringing past decisions back, to haunt you, much like a river that eventually brings all discarded debris back to its banks. The casual cruelty of her father's choice, driven by materialism, felt sharper and more real than ever, a stark contrast to the whispered gentleness of her wedding night. Later that day, amidst the bustle of Kwame's family compound preparing for the traditional visiting of the bride ceremonies, Amma felt the walls closing in. The vibrant fabrics, the clatter of pots and pans as women prepared exquisite meals like pounded yam and egusi soup, the endless teasing and laughter, it all felt like a beautiful cage. Kwame, observing her quietude, pulled her aside, his voice gentle. "Amma, my love, you seem distant. Is something troubling you?" His sincerity, his unwavering patience was a balm, but also a torment. How could she confess how her father's avarice had cast a shadow over their union? How could she admit that a part of her commitment was born not just of love, but of obligation and a hidden family transaction? Her struggle intensified as she met the eyes of Mama Ekayet, Kwame's mother, a woman who exuded warmth, but also an expectation of truth and honor. A marriage built on lies is a house built on sand, Mama Ekayet had once told Amma during their engagement courtship. It will crumble with the first strong wind. Amma's throat tightened. The confession clawed at her, a desperate need to unburden herself of the secret of her father's material dealings, the subtle betrayal of Dio, and the uneasy feeling that their grand wedding was less a union of hearts and more a merger of assets. She knew that withholding this information was not just a betrayal of Kwame, but a betrayal of the sanctity of marriage itself, a concept deeply revered in their culture. Every touch of Kwame's hand, every tender glance sharpened the edges of her guilt, pushing her closer to the precipice of a dramatic confession that she knew could either shatter their fragile new bond or forge it anew, purified by truth. The ideal moment arrived that evening, under the soft glow of lanterns in Kwame's family garden. Amma, unable to bear the weight of her secret any longer, found Kwame sitting alone, gazing at the stars. "Kwame," she began, her voice trembling, "there is something you must know." The words tumbled out, hesitant at first, then gaining a frantic momentum. The details of her father's financial struggles, the desperate deal struck with Kwame's family for investment in exchange for her hand, the quiet dismissal of Dio, and her own complicit silence. She spoke of the materialism that had dictated so much of their future, painting a picture of a grand wedding built on a foundation of hidden obligations, not pure, unadulterated love. Kwame listened, his face a mask of shock and pain. The tenderness in his eyes slowly receded, replaced by a flicker of betrayal. "You knew?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, yet ringing with accusation. "You knew, and you said nothing?" But before Amma could offer a full explanation, a new layer of truth, a plot twist she hadn't anticipated, began to unfold. Kwame, reeling from her confession, retaliated with his own painful secret. "And what about your father's struggles, Amma?" he shot back, his voice hardening. "Do you know how much he profited from forcing my family's hand? Do you know the debts he leveraged, all under the guise of securing your future?" He revealed a deeper, more insidious betrayal. That Chief Oladipo had not merely sought investment, but had grossly inflated his project's financial needs, swindling portions of Kwame's family wealth through a carefully orchestrated scheme, exploiting their desperation for a prestigious alliance. The grand wedding, Amma realized with chilling clarity, was less a symbol of their unity and more a sophisticated corporate takeover. Her father the architect of a silent, devastating fraud. The ground beneath her feet seemed to give way. The revelation hung in the humid Lagos air, heavy and suffocating. The honeymoon period, a mere 24 hours old, was not just shattered, it was pulverized. Amma stared at Kwame, her mind reeling, trying to reconcile the gentleman who had asked, "May I?" with the wounded, betrayed husband now before her. "My father, he lied?" Her voice was barely a croak. The extent of Chief Oladipo's manipulation, preying on the Balogan family's desire for a good match and leveraging their traditional values for financial gain, was a poison seeping into the very core of their nascent marriage. The gentleness that had been their foundation felt like a cruel irony now, a fragile illusion masking a transactional horror. Arguments erupted, hissing like angry snakes in the quiet of the night. Kwame felt used, his family's honor tarnished. Amma felt a profound shame, not just for her father's actions, but for her own unwitting complicity, her silence. The struggle of women in patriarchal societies, often caught between filial duty and personal integrity, was never more apparent. She had been a pawn, groomed for a prestigious marriage, her consent a mere formality in a larger game of power and wealth. The societal expectation, the unspoken command to obey her father, had trapped her. Now, the full weight of that obedience, that silence, crushed her. The vision of her grandmother's warning, "A river without banks floods the village. Greed knows no shores," resonated with a terrible clarity. Their wedding, meant to be a joyous union, had become a testament to the corrosive power of materialism, leaving them stranded, two strangers bound by a shattered promise. The days that followed were a blur of unspoken accusations and simmering resentment. Amma, desperate for guidance, confided in her mother, Mama Adunni, who listened with a stony, almost impassive face. "Amma," her mother said, her voice firm, "your father, he is a man of his generation. He believes he acted for the family's good, to secure our future." But Amma saw the flicker of shame in her mother's eyes, the quiet acknowledgement of a moral compromise. It was then that Amma sought out Iya Agba, her grandmother, who still lived in Ijebu Ode, but visited Lagos often, a beacon of ancient wisdom amidst the city's chaos. Iya Agba, her face a roadmap of life's travails, listened patiently, rocking gently in her ancient armchair. She served Amma a steaming bowl of traditional pepper soup, believing food could soothe a troubled soul. "My child," Iya Agba began, her voice like smooth river stones, "a bird does not fly with one wing. A marriage cannot stand on half-truths. It is better to swallow a bitter truth than to chew a sweet lie." She spoke of ancestors who had faced betrayal, of communities fractured by deceit, but always, always found their way back to harmony through honest confrontation and genuine remorse. She reminded Amma of the sacredness of the marital bond, the spiritual contract that transcended mere human dealings. "Your father's path was his own," Iya Agba stated, her eyes sharp. "But your path, and Kwame's, must be built on what is true, what is genuine. Forgiveness, my daughter, begins with honesty, not silence." The wisdom of her ancestors, distilled through her grandmother, felt like a cool stream washing over Amma's parched spirit, urging her to confront the truth, not just for herself, but for the communal harmony that their union, however fractured, represented. Armed with Iya Agba's words, Amma returned to Kwame, a new resolve hardening her gaze. She found him in his home office, surrounded by diagrams of his tech projects, a fortress of logic against emotional chaos. "Kwame," she began, her voice clear, despite the tremor in her heart, I cannot undo what my father did, but I can choose my own path, and my path is with you, built on truth, not on his deceptions." She confessed her fears, her shame, her confusion, but also her unwavering love for him, a love that had blossomed even amidst the transactional nature of their union. She offered him not excuses, but a promise of transparency, a vow to help him seek justice for what her father had done, even if it meant confronting her own family. Kwame looked at her, truly looked at her, perhaps, for the first time since the revelations. He saw not just the socialite his family had chosen, but a woman of strength, willing to defy patriarchal expectations and family honor to stand for what was right. His initial anger began to yield to a painful understanding. He shared his own fears, the unspoken burden of potential infertility, a vulnerability he had hidden, fearing the stigma. He recounted the vague medical report, the fear of disappointing his lineage. "A path walked alone is a lonely one, Amma," he admitted, his voice raw. "But if we walk together, even the steepest hill becomes surmountable." In that moment, surrounded by the echoes of betrayal and the weight of societal expectations, they chose each other, not for wealth or status, but for the raw human connection that had flickered to life on their wedding night. Their passion, born initially of gentleness, was now tempered by a shared vulnerability and the difficult, yet liberating, choice of honesty. Months passed. The initial tremor of their marriage had given way to a quiet, profound rebuilding. Amma, with Kwame's unwavering support, assisted in uncovering the full extent of her father's financial misdeeds. It was a painful, public process, but, through it, Chief Oladipo was forced to face his actions, eventually making restitutions, albeit under duress. The community, initially scandalized, eventually lauded Amma and Kwame for their courage and integrity. Their marriage, once tainted by deceit, became a testament to the power of truth and communal harmony. The stigma of infertility, which Kwame had secretly carried, was also confronted. Together, they sought counsel from a fertility specialist, facing the challenges with open hearts, supported by their now unified families. They explored options, understanding that children, if they came, would be a blessing, but not the sole definition of their worth or the strength of their love. Their home, once filled with the ghosts of unspoken secrets, now resonated with genuine laughter. The tender whisper, "Teach me slowly, with gentleness," had evolved into a shared philosophy, a guiding principle for navigating life's complexities. They had learned that true intimacy was not just about physical connection, but about the exquisite attention they paid to each other's joys, fears, and vulnerabilities. Amma's whispers of pleasure were sweeter because they were untainted by hidden burdens. Kwame's touch was deeper because it came from a place of profound respect and shared resilience. Their love, forged in the crucible of betrayal and honesty, confession, embodied the truest African values: the importance of honesty, the wisdom of confronting difficult truths, the grace of forgiveness, and the communal harmony that blossoms when two souls choose an authentic path. They faced the future, hand in hand, knowing their foundation was not gold, but solid, unyielding truth. A love learned slowly, with gentleness, and with an enduring spirit. If you enjoyed the story, then like, subscribe, and share this story with your loved ones. Also, tell us in the comments where you are watching from.